Well, there's no question the president can give a great speech, and his technique is one of the best that we've seen in a long time. The problem I have in comparing last night's State of the State speech that Governor Sandoval gave and the State of the Union address tonight with President Obama is that the governor gave specifics last night. He told us how he's going to, his plan for bringing us out of this economic doldrums that we're in. He talked about how he was going to balance the budget, and he was very specific. The president tonight offered very few specifics, and I heard the term investment a lot, and that investment is just code word for more spending. And when we're borrowing 40 cents out of every dollar that we spend, we need serious cutbacks in spending, and literally everything needs to be on the table. And if the president right now, as a Democrat, will join with the Republicans in Congress, we can do what's right for the American people and not worry about who gets the political blame, but let's just put our country first instead of our party first. There's no question education needs to be a priority for our state and for our country, and more money in a bad system is not necessarily going to get us there. I like some of the proposals that the president has talked about with Arne Duncan, his Secretary of Education. There's some good reform proposals in there, but just throwing more money at mostly a bad system is not going to work. And the federal government, the more it's involved, it seems the worse our schools get. So we need to transform those schools at the local level. We need to do some of the things the governor's talked about being able to get rid of bad teachers, about paying for student performance, paying good teachers more money if they're improving student performance. Those are the kinds of reforms that will really transform our schools and make us more competitive. But all of us as Nevadans, as Americans, need to agree that education needs to be our top priority going forward if we want to be competitive in the global marketplace. Tonight, the president talked about freezing spending for the next 5 years on non-security discretionary spending. That means he didn't touch entitlements. That means he didn't touch any of the big programs like defense. And I believe that everything needs to be on the table. We waste a lot of money in our defense budget, in the Pentagon bureaucracy. There's a lot of waste that goes on in overruns, cost overruns with the big defense contractors. But the entitlement programs need to be reformed. We spend a lot of money on Medicaid. We ought to block grant that to the states and cap the amount that we're spending to let the states transform Medicaid. And plus the fact that when he talks about a freeze in spending, we increase spending in the areas that he's talking about by 24% over the last 2 years. And to freeze it at a very high level is unacceptable. We need to go back several years, cut spending, because we cannot continue to borrow at the rate that we're borrowing, or we're going to destroy this country. I think the governor understood that he needs to balance the budget. By law, he needs to balance the budget. So he's put concrete proposals on this table, take us back to 2007 levels. This president's talking about freezing us at a very, very high level and doesn't touch 2/3 of the budget. So that's not going to get us to where we need to be as far as fiscally responsible nation. We need to have everything on the table. We need to go back several years. Instead of freezing, we need to cut back to at least 2008, if not earlier spending levels. Put defense on the table, put all the entitlements on the table, and work together. The president ought to take a page out of Ronald Reagan's book, where he worked with Tip O'Neill. He had a Republican president, a Democrat Speaker of the House. They worked together to work on Social Security reform. This president needs to join with Republicans to work on Social Security reform, Medicare reform, Medicaid reform, because those are the parts of the budget that are going to continue to grow and grow and literally take up the whole budget unless we do something about it and do it soon. Well, I was pleased that the president did embrace our earmark moratorium. I think that's a good thing to do, because earmarks are just buying too many votes to increase spending. So I appreciated that in the president's speech tonight. You know, this bipartisanship, sitting together, you know, it was a nice tone. It's a nice gesture, but that's all it is a gesture. The proof is really going to be in the pudding. Are people really willing to work together to do what's right for the country? And that means taking tough political votes in a bipartisan fashion, so neither party gets the blame, but take tough political votes so that we can actually get to a balanced budget. That's what we did in the late 1990s. We had a Republican Congress, a Democrat president. We worked across party lines, and we were able to not only balance the budget, but start paying down actually some of the debt that we owed. That's critical that we start doing that today. The ways to address competitiveness education's got to be critical, especially K through 12 education in the United States. We have to improve. We have to improve the regulatory structure. The president has put something out there, but when you look at the details of it, it actually really doesn't do that much about the regulatory climate in the United States. Regulations are a hidden tax, and we have too many regulations that are way too burdensome on business and make us less competitive in this global economy. And then we have the second highest corporate tax rate in the world. Japan has the highest. They're about to lower it, so we'll be the highest. So we need to look at ways to lowering our corporate tax rate. I'm glad the president has put that on the table, but once again, let's see whether proposals actually come forward and where he's willing to work and Democrats in Congress are willing to work with us to do these things to make us more competitive in this global marketplace. Well, talk is cheap. We know that. You can give a great speech, and this president certainly knows how to give a great speech, but the proof is really going to be in the work ahead. Are we going to have serious policies come out of the White House, come out of the Democrats to join with Republicans to get this deficit under control, to control regulations to make us more competitive in the future, to lower our corporate tax rate, to make our products cheaper in the global marketplace? Those are all things that we need to work together on, and forget party labels, but just say, how do we do best for future generations of America to make sure that America's best days truly are ahead of us? I believe they can be if we make the right choices. And I'm hopeful that this Congress, in a bipartisan fashion, will make those right choices with this president.